Welcome to another day in Mae Sot, Thailand. It is Saturday, April 18th, and I think that makes it day 24 of the state of emergency here in Thailand. There isn't a lot to report in the way of big adventures out there in Thailand, of course. This is my world right now. I thought about taking the camera downstairs. You know, I could sit in the lobby of the hotel and have a different setting, but it's actually really dark in the lobby. They don't have any lights on at all. And there's these young guys that work at the hotel. They're always sitting there playing their video games on their phones. And I don't think they'd appreciate me, setting up a camera and then settling in with a cup of coffee and chatting into the camera. I don't want to freak those poor guys out. That means I'm back here in my chair. I don't have a cup of coffee going right now, but I think I will in a minute or two. I've been up for a while this morning already, and I had a cup of coffee and did my surfing around the internet to get caught up on all the stories, everything that's going on. But I think it will be time for another cup of coffee, so I'll plug in my kettle in a few minutes. But we'll wait for that. Last video, I talked a little bit about my poor Dell laptop and how it's got more and more problems. And the latest problem was that the cooling fan on the inside, had pretty much stopped turning. And I assumed that was because so much dust and dirt got in, it just kind of jammed. And then it might run for a little while and you get this high-pitched whining sound. So that was the problem I was dealing with. And because the fan wasn't working properly, the laptop was overheating. And a lot of you gave me tips, mainly how I should not put the laptop on the bed, because that blocks the fan. And I should say in my defense that the laptop really wasn't flat on the bed. If I have it on the bed, it's normally just sitting on my lap, and then it's raised up, and it's actually completely open to the air on all sides, the way I sit on the bed if I'm typing. But if I do put it down on the bed, like I did during that video, I had this big ring, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches high. I would stick it underneath the laptop. If you look carefully at the video, you'll see that the laptop was actually raised up off the bed because I have objects stuffed underneath it. So it's sitting on an angle and then has airflow underneath it. So that's what I was doing. So I wasn't really just putting my laptop flat on the bed. I can be a bit of a dummy sometimes, but I know that. I know not to block the vent, for the fan. And today I took it a couple steps further. I now have this big metal tray, flat metal tray there that's kind of raised up. And then on top of that tray, I have another small base, so the laptop is sitting high up with lots of airflow. So that overheating is not as big a problem right now. Plus, my big story of the last couple of days is that I took my courage in both hands and I opened up the laptop to see if I could clean the fan myself. YouTube came to my rescue here because I typed in the model name for my laptop and fan cleaning or fan removal, whatever search words I used. And I found a very simple guide, step-by-step guide to how to open up this laptop safely, and then how to remove the fan and the heat sink. And after that, it didn't give any advice about cleaning it, but at least I knew now how to safely open up the laptop and remove the fan assembly. And I was so nervous doing this because I've done this in the past. I remember I had kind of an iPod ages ago, and I ordered a new battery for it online, and then you get one of these special kits in the mail back in those days because you're not supposed to remove the battery yourself in an iPod. It's all sealed and you have to send it in to Apple for them to do it. This was a long time ago. But I thought, I'm not a total idiot. If I've got a guide and I've got the right tools, I'll be able to do it. But of course, when you watch the video about how to do it, it looks very simple and easy. It always does. And then when I did it, I totally destroyed the iPod. I mean, step one, I think I tried to pry it open and I ripped out all these seals and all these connectors, and within a minute I had destroyed the iPod. So my helpful YouTube video guide did not help me in any way. But in this case, you know, I went about it very slowly. I went out into the city actually, and I bought a little screwdriver at a hardware store because I did not, well, all of my tools are connected with my touring bike, and that is all in storage in Malaysia, so I don't even have access to any of my regular tools. I normally have a lot of stuff with me, so I didn't even have a little screwdriver for the tiny screws on this thing. So I bought this for about $1 at a hardware store here, took out all the screws, and that went fairly well. And though what was quite funny is once I had the back plate off, I could see all this kind of debris inside the laptop. I says, what the heck is all that? There were like bits of plastic, bits of metal, bits of mounting things that had broken off. There were screws kind of floating around inside the laptop. I picked up the whole thing and I turned it upside down over my bed, and this avalanche of junk just kind of fell out of the inside of the laptop. And I guess this was just standard breakage or wear and tear from carrying this laptop around. Things inside were breaking, like mounting points and screws are all snapping off on the inside. So, I mean, it's like a miracle that this laptop is still running, to be honest. And then I turned it upside down and dumped out all of this stuff. And then I very carefully, same screwdriver, removed all the screws for the heat sink. And then I managed to carefully, I have a pair of tweezers as part of my personal grooming kit, so I could use the tweezers to unplug the fan, trying to be very delicate. I'm trying to ground myself, which you're supposed to do so you don't, you know, destroy the laptop with a static charge or something. And then I removed the fan and the heatsink assembly very carefully, and everything seemed to be going quite well. And I was right about the fan. It was just black with dirt and dust. I mean, it was just jammed in there that I was carrying this thing heavily like it was a bomb ready to go off. If I had sneezed while I was holding this thing, it would have blown a cloud of black goo and dust to fill this whole room. I mean, it was that caked in dust and dirt, so it really did need to be cleaned. So I pulled it out, and then I got my second weapon. I took my toothbrush. Earlier, when I bought the screwdriver, I bought a new toothbrush so that I could use my old toothbrush to just sort of, you know, clean the fan as much as possible and blow all the dust away in the sink, you know, in my bathroom. Careful, trying not to drop this thing. And over a long period of time, I cleaned away as much of the dirt and the dust as I could from the fan and the heat sink. And to my delight, it worked. So, I still have tons of problems with this laptop. The letter E on the keyboard popped off a while back, so I had to use duct tape and bits of plastic. I had to build my own letter E to put on there. So now I have to type in a really weird way because I have to hit the letter E at a different angle than all the other letters to make it stick. But it does seem to be working again for now. So that is the story of my laptop. The other big story, at least as far as my life is concerned, and perhaps a bigger story than my laptop, is of course the ongoing visa drama. Nothing much has changed there, I have to say. There has not been any announcement about the visa amnesty being extended into May. There are still all the same questions online. Lots of people are just asking the same questions. If I have this visa, can I do this? If I have that visa, I do that. Then what happens after that? Everybody's like laser focused on April 30th, you know, the day when our visa extension expires for everyone in the country all at once, and nobody knows what's going to happen. You know, I feel, you know, I'm a big fan of the Terminator movies, you know, and this April 30th date has come to form like a judgment day in my mind. You know, that's the day when the world ends, April 30th, and everybody's trying to do as many things as they can to try and figure out how to avoid doomsday on April 30th. You know, what should I do? So far, though, no helpful Terminator has burst through the door to lay it out for me, you know? And no Kyle Reese has come to save me. But some things have happened. They have to happen because that date is getting closer and closer. my own visa expires on April 25th. So in a perfect world, I just get an automatic extension until the end of May from the Thai government. That would be the best case scenario, but we don't know whether that's going to happen, and I can't count on that. So I have to assume my visa expires on April 25th, next week Saturday, and I have to deal with that. And I don't have a lot of firm information about this, but I do know that for anyone to get this extension, like for me to go to immigration and apply for what people are calling the COVID-19 extension or the emergency extension, to get that, you have to submit a letter of support from your embassy. And a while back, I got an email from the Canadian consulate in Bangkok saying, if you need this letter, write to this email address and we'll see what we can do. But then I got another email from them that said, because of this visa amnesty, you probably don't need this letter anymore. So I wasn't sure what they were doing with this letter now. Were they still giving it to people? What I wanted to do was apply for the letter from the embassy, get it just in case. By next Wednesday, maybe we'll find out that the state of emergency has been extended and all foreigners get another 30 days until the end of May. But at this point, I don't know that. I have no way to know. So I want to have this letter just in case I need to go to immigration and apply for the COVID-19 extension. And that's not going to happen until next week. Interestingly enough, connected to this story is I did see a news article yesterday, I believe, that said that for all the migrant workers in the country, and I think that community vastly outnumbers tourists like me. We're talking about overseas workers from Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, Vietnam. I mean, there's millions of them in Thailand normally working on border passes and work permits and things like that. And they're in the same boat as all of us. But in this article, there was a big announcement that the Thai government have given all of them a blanket visa amnesty until November. They just said, okay, this thing is going to go on for a while. We've got a problem to deal with, so don't worry about it. No penalties for overstaying your work permit. Don't worry about it. We'll give you automatic extension for everybody, however many millions there are still in the country. I don't really know how many are still in Thailand and haven't gone home, but there are a lot of them. But for them, yeah, huge relief for them. They all got an extension until November. So that makes me think the officials here are still thinking about this issue, and they're dealing with that first, and maybe they'll think about us next. If they're going to give them till November, I mean, maybe they'll give us till the end of May. I don't know. Anyway, the other morning I took my courage in both hands again. I seem to be doing that a lot lately. It's like opening my laptop. I assume disaster is on its way. Contacting the Canadian Embassy in an official capacity, I'm just convinced it's going to be a disaster. I have that feeling. But, I sat down and I was well rested from the night before. I was thinking clearly, and I set aside almost the whole morning to deal with it. And me being me, I came at it in a very organized, systematic fashion, put together the email to the Canadian Embassy, thought long and hard about the subject line because I really wanted it to be clear, what that said, request for, visa extension support letter, I think was what I wrote in the subject line. And then I was finally finished the whole email. And then I've got my mouse hovering over the send button, and I'm like trembling, like, oh, no. I can barely even look at my laptop. I can barely look at the computer. So I have to close my eyes and send, and then see whether the world, exploded or something. But to my delight, I sent the email, and I swear within a minute, I got a ding. And it was just one of those automated replies, like signaling receipt of your email. So that doesn't help me out in any way, of course, but it's a great relief. At least I know that the email went out, it arrived somewhere, and some computer system knows it's there and pinged a reply back to me. And this reply was really funny. This whole process amused me intensely, because in this reply, it had all kinds of information, and somewhere in there it was talking about visa extension support letters, and said something like, you know, if you need one of these letters and you're contacting us, it was like, please, please, please include a copy of your passport. And I'm looking at that sentence and I'm kind of offended. You know, I'm thinking, like, who do you think you're dealing with? You think I'm going to send in an email like this and not include a copy of my passport? Then you don't know me. Like I said, you don't know who you're dealing with. So I spent the whole morning making copies. I made a copy of my passport information page, my visa pages with all the dates from my visas into Thailand and all my extensions, copy of my hotel receipt showing, you know, that I've paid up until my, you know, I've paid for this hotel and this is where I'm living and here's the address. I supplied a photograph, you know, like that you would give for a visa application in case they need to put a picture of me in a file somewhere. And then in the bulk of the email itself, I gave them every piece of information I could think of, carefully itemized, you know, full name, passport number, expiry date, issue date, place of issue, visa dates, visa issue, visa cost, address here in full, phone number here, my phone number, emergency contact in Canada, everything I could possibly think of. You know, I stopped short of giving them my favorite color and favorite pizza toppings, but short of that, I gave them every piece of information I could think of that a bureaucratic process would require. And I included that all in the email. And of course, I made very sure to attach all the documents I'm supposed to attach. I know it's so common in this world where people write an email and say, see attachment, and then for some reason they send the email without ever attaching the attachment. Happens to so many people. So I was very, very careful about that and made sure I attached everything, sent it all in, and ping, I got the ping back. Thank you for your email, we've received it. And I figured I would then have to wait for a few days until next week until I get an official reply. To my amazement, to my joy, 10 minutes later I got another email, and this email had nothing in the content except a PDF attachment from the Canadian consulate. I confirmed it was from them. I'm not opening attachments or clicking on links in an email unless I absolutely know it's from a trusted sender. So this was from the Canadian Embassy, and of course I don't click on the PDF. I copy it to my computer and then I open it using a program. Again, for security reasons, you really don't just want to click on something and have it launch. What I like to do is open the program I know is associated with that document, and then from within that program, I will open the PDF. And then I think that is the safest way to go about it. Whew. Coffee's ready. Well, I have to admit, I looked at that PDF with great suspicion because I assumed it was going to open up and reveal itself to be a giant form. You know, I'd given the consulate all the information they need, but I just figured, well, they probably now sent me a form and I'm going to have to fill out this whole form and repeat all that information, which is fine. But I was worried that they were going to ask for things that I don't have. In particular, I mean, the whole point of this emergency extension is really for people who can't get to where they want to go because of canceled flights. So I thought they were going to ask for proof that I had had a flight booked and then that flight had been canceled. And I wouldn't be able to supply that because I haven't even gotten to the point in my brain where I would think about booking a flight, let alone risk having it canceled. So I had no such canceled flight history to support my request. And I assumed that's what they were going to ask for, whether it's reasonable or not. Again, bureaucracy, not known for its capacity for reason. So I opened up the PDF, and again, I kind of closed my eyes and like a horror movie, you know, and barely had the courage to peek through my fingers to look at it. And again, joy and delight all over the place. It was the letter. I sent my email in asking for the letter. 10 minutes later, they sent me the completed letter. That's all it was. A simple letter of support for me to take to immigration. All done. I mean, it took me an hour or two to compose the email, and then once I sent it, 10 minutes I had the letter that I wanted. I didn't have to wait for the weekend. I didn't have to wait next week. So that was amazing. The fact that they had a system in place to deal with it that quickly blew my mind, and I'm so happy about that. And the letter itself was so amusing. It was such an interesting letter. Half of it appeared to have been written by an 18th century bureaucrat, and the other half was written by a 21st century lawyer. It had such an odd tone. Now, I don't know if the Thai government has issued any kind of instructions for what these support letters are supposed to contain. I assume they didn't, so each embassy has to decide themselves. Say, okay, these poor Canadian citizens, they need a letter from us. Well, what do we say? There's really nothing they can say. So actually, I'll read a little bit. I'll quote it to you. This is the, need my glasses here. Got my laptop. Oh, so cool on the bottom. Amazing. So the first paragraph from the 18th century bureaucrat says, "This letter serves to introduce you to Mr. Douglas John Nienhuis, bearer of a Canadian passport." And that's it. It's an introduction letter. This letter serves to introduce you to Mr. Nienhuis. And that's all it says. And it feels like an 18th century letter of introduction. If you were one of the original European explorers of Africa, and you might carry a letter of introduction that you present to the local government or something, So that's 18th century, I thought. And then the second paragraph I thought was even more interesting, because that's the meat and potatoes of what this is about. And it says, "The Embassy of Canada does not object to Canadian citizens applying for visa extensions to temporarily remain in the Kingdom of Thailand." And that is just so interesting. The embassy wants to offer me support, but they can't actually say anything. They can't say, "Oh, Doug, great guy. You can trust him. We know him. We are backing him 100%. Please give him this visa extension." They're not asking for anything. They're not saying to immigration, "Please give this Canadian an extension." Basically, they have said nothing while pretending to have said something. And to do that, they went into the negative and basically said, "The Embassy of Canada does not object." And that's as far as they would go. I mean, they didn't dare go even a millimeter beyond that point. They didn't even want to hint that they are requesting a favor or giving me any credibility or supporting me in any way. We do not object that Canadian citizens, not even me, they say, we do not object to Canadian citizens applying for visa extensions. And that's all they're willing to say. And that is paragraph 2 from the 21st century lawyer, I assume. And of course, you get the third paragraph, which is the closing. "Your kind consideration, blah, 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 Thank you very much." So this is an absolutely delightful letter to get. I just find that so interesting. That weird combination of 18th century prose and 21st century, legalese. But it doesn't matter most of the time when you go to bureaucracies. Like sometimes what the document actually is does not matter. It often doesn't even get examined. It just has to exist. So they will say to me, "Do you have the support letter?" "Here is my support letter." Letterhead, Canadian Embassy. The words themselves are, largely or completely irrelevant. But now I do have the letter. I've got that in my back pocket. My hair is getting longer and longer, of course. I've got the fan blowing my hair down over my forehead because all barbershops are still closed right now. Though I did see an article that they're considering allowing barbershops to open. You know, they were closed because they're not essential services. But I saw some chatter online that because the numbers in Thailand continue to be, you know, comparatively good, I think, you know, most days, again, there's like 1 fatality and 30, 25, 40 new infections. So there is a certain optimism brewing out there as far as I can tell. Of course, as soon as a government official says anything positive, they immediately haul it back and say, but the reason this is happening is because of our measures and our quarantine and self-isolation. So don't relax. Don't let up on all these measures. Let's stay the course and keep it going. That's what everybody says. But I did see another article that this weekend, the land border between Thailand and Malaysia was going to open, which I thought was amazing. That was like the most positive news I've seen in a long time. Of course, that doesn't mean it's open to me. It will be open to trucks, you know, because, you know, the economy, the struggle with the whole economy being shut down is probably the most difficult thing for the country and everybody to deal with. So they really want to get the economies rolling as much as possible. So they're going to open the land border and allow goods to flow back and forth in trucks. And maybe some people can cross at that border, but they would have to be quite specific people with all the right documents and everything. Just because that border is opening does not mean it's open to foreigners, because foreigners are not allowed into Malaysia at this point anyway. They're still under their own lockdown over there anyway. And who knows when that's going to change. Another issue that's quite interesting is that a lot of the people who kind of live on a daily wage have gotten into trouble very fast. You know, I saw stories where they interviewed people, and there would be a motorcycle driver, for example, and they might make, you know, 400 baht in a day as, you know, driving people on their motorcycle, and that much money would kind of get them through that day and the next day. You know, they're kind of living day to day on their salary at that time. And of course, with nobody going anywhere, their income has dropped to almost nothing, and suddenly they are having trouble even buying food. So a lot of charitable organizations have sprung up, you know, giving care packages out to people. Large temples have started distributing food on the street. But that leads into another problem, because there's one story about a large temple operating quite a large center for giving out food, and several thousand people showed up, and then of course they have to get in this big line stretching down the sidewalk, and they're all in tight quarters. You know, they're all pressed up against each other, a couple thousand people shuffling forward in this line to get their care packages. And yeah, social distancing, that's the exact opposite of social distancing. So then, of course, the government had to step in and say, no, you can't do that. So even charities that want to help and give food to people that need it, because of the nature of this pandemic, they can't even do that. You know, they have to kind of find ways to do this. There has also been the re-emergence of grocery trucks, which I guess were quite common in Thailand before the era of giant supermarkets. You would have a truck, basically, that was a store on wheels, and these trucks would drive from village to village, open the side doors, and then they have, you know, goods they're selling and fresh vegetables. And it's basically a supermarket in a truck. And that's how a lot of people used to get their food before the era of Tesco. But now, of course, with so many supermarkets and markets closing, the grocery trucks are seeing a resurgence. And you see more and more of them out, I guess, and they're doing you know, thriving business, making more money than they did before. But of course, right on the heels of that, there is the concern of, okay, you know, we have all these travel bans. You're not supposed to be moving around. So are these trucks moving from village to village, are they a good idea? Are the drivers putting themselves at risk? What do we do with this now? So as soon as you see a story about something good, you kind of get slapped back into, whoa, maybe this isn't so good. So I'm seeing, a lot of stories like that. And I think that is about it for my coronavirus update today. This is kind of my life right now, not much more than this going on. I am still watching some TV shows on my laptop. I finished the show Succession. There were 2 seasons. I got all the way to the end. A very satisfying conclusion to season 2, though I have to admit I saw it coming from a mile away. I don't know if the writers expected us to be shocked at this sudden twist, but it was not a sudden twist for me. I saw it coming. I think a lot of people would, but it was still quite satisfying. I enjoyed it a great deal. My favorite show right now continues to be Devs. I'm up to episode 8, I believe. I think that was the most recent one to come out, and it ended on kind of a cliffhanger. And I think the next episode is the big reveal. I mean, the show has been leading up to something really big, and it's a total mystery. We're not sure what's going to happen. I can't even guess what's going to happen. If I were writing the show, I would be at a loss, considering the plot. I wouldn't even know how to finish the story. I don't know where it's heading, so I'm interested to see what happens on Devs. And now I think I might start season 3 of Ozark or Tiger Kings. I mean, if you're online at all or you're listening to podcasts, whatever you're doing, especially in the United States, Tiger Kings is everywhere. I mean, it's the new hot topic. It's kind of the new Chernobyl. When Chernobyl came out, everybody was talking about Chernobyl, but now everybody seems to be talking about Tiger Kings or Tiger King. I don't know if it's plural or singular. So I might watch that or Ozark. We'll see what I do there. So that is it for now. I'm going to finish my cup of coffee, settle into the rest of my day, and I will see you in the next video.